Very good morning to all of you. I have the pleasure of conducting this session with our esteemed former directors. From my left, Dr. Balachandra Ganeshan, Karthik Shankar, Gladwin Joseph, and Ravi Chellam. Now these guys together, the four of them, have accounted for nearly, I think, 75% of the total duration of our 25 years of ATREE. So before we begin, and trouble them in their hot seat, as I say, can we give them a round of applause? For as it's obvious, because of this 80% or 75% of the period of 25 years, I think for good or bad, they have defined what ATREE was and what ATREE has been and what ATREE probably would be in the years to come. So what I'm going to do is in this sort of small, I think 25 minutes discussion, ask each one of them their reflections about what they went through when they were directing ATREE during the period. But before I do that, I just suddenly remembered that the rest 20% of the time that ATREE was managed, I think we need to also give them a round of applause. That is Francis Xavier and Chiranjeevi and Nitin Pandit and Ravi Kant. They've done a wonderful job in the last few years since all of them sort of went back to their respective other roles. So, sorry. I should begin with Gladwin, because I think of all the people here, probably he's the oldest.
Well done.
Probably not in age, but in the directorship of ATREE that he's had. He sort of was leading ATREE for, my throat is bad, he was leading ATREE for about 10 or 12 years. That's a really major chunk of period of the 25 years. So Gladwin, can you share with us what were some of the major challenges you think you had to face during those early growth phases of ATREE?
Let me just, I think, share a little personal journey.
Can you keep the mic?
Yeah, sure. When I came just from a postdoc in a lab where all I interacted with was one colleague and my, boss. And so when I came and I was interviewed for the position, I had all these 5 trustees in front of me asking me very difficult questions. And I really am grateful that they saw something in me that I didn't really see in myself, and offered me the position. And I actually grew with that, with all my colleagues and with all of you as well, the 3 trustees, over those 10 years. And it was an incredible learning experience, both from learning, how to work with people, and also the incredible rich environment that ATREE is, that very rich interdisciplinary environment. It was like a re-education for me, learning a whole lot of things that have remained with me even now. And I think we often say we get ATREE-fied, and that's so true. And it's hard to, I'm still involved in some way or the other, and it's hard. And then, I ended up being physically proximate home and ATREE, so it's like I can't avoid ATREE. So I think the challenges were working synergistically with the board, with the president, the founding president, the trustees, and the faculty and staff. I think it's, for any director, playing that role of building community, bringing everyone together, and then moving in a direction um, that is, in a sense, collectively envisioned and, in a sense, collectively, in a good sense, driven. And I think the important things, at least I learned, was building ownership at all levels. And I think that is, for the new director coming in, how do you build that? Without it becoming, this is my fiefdom, but building individual ownership, but yet having a collective spirit. And I'm just so happy to see the way this program the 25th year celebration has been conducted. I see that spirit of a community, it's a very unique ATREE culture, and it takes a lot of effort because I think relational leadership, is extremely intensive emotionally, and it drains. That's why I lost all my hair and became old, as you said, but in a good way. So.
Yeah, maybe we'll try to repay that from ATREE. Have a hair transplant for you arranged, organic. So coming to you, Ravi. Ravi, you have been a very dynamic guy working with Lions. I'd like to ask you, what were the real highs that you sort of saw at ATREE, or you made ATREE have during your period?
Well, first of all, a big high was getting the job. The first time I was playing an institutional leadership role. The process was trying. If I remember correctly, went through, 7 levels of interview, ranging from small group of 2 or 3 people to the largest group had 30 or 40 people asking me questions and things like that. So that was a big high. I mean, to be heading an institution, first time in my life. But more seriously, to answer your question, I think we had some big pushes for the PhD program, for the new campus. Oh, first time. The PhD program had a big push. I think the first students were there, but the relationship with Manipal hadn't yet solidified. The new building was coming up. It was in an advanced stage. It needed to be completed. That's been a bit of a, what shall I say, a feeling of having let myself down, that while contributing to the building, never really worked out of that even for a single day. Missed out by about 4 months, I think. The India Biodiversity Portal, something which was in the cooking, had a big push. It got launched December of 2008, soon after I laid down that role. Major grants, the CEPF grant. We had a trying time getting a Tata grant. I mean, the review committee that came really thrashed us, but we pulled our socks up and went to Bombay and really put forward our case. The Ford Foundation grant. So all of those would be the high points in terms of specific activities. But to me, the bigger high point was really trying to work with generally quarrelsome people. I mean, people who are very friendly to each other, but when they get into a meeting, man, it is trying. And with a non-hierarchical way of functioning, it often was holding meetings to time. You set an hour, you can rest assured it's going to take at least 90 minutes. So that to me was a huge learning. Somehow have to change that. And I think towards then I was trying to get a knack of how to do that.
Thank you, Ravi. I don't know that if you could manage Lions.
That was not a circus, let me assure you.
So, Bala, you came to ATREE from, if I'm right, from the Ford Foundation, and you were you were the director of the Ford Foundation. And at that time, Ford Foundation was a donor of ATREE. So what was it like coming from being a donor to the recipient chair? And how did you sort of manage this issue? We have heard yesterday also of organizations like ATREE always hungry for grants. So what did you see at your role or during your time as a director in getting grants into ATREE? From a grant giver to a grant receiver.
Right. Anyway, I think my association with the ATREE goes pre-ATREE time. With Dr. Kamal Bawa, I think I've been associated for half my life. So I don't think he has still adopted me, but and with you and Ganeshaya, I think the Friday or Thursday evening lectures during my PhD time, that goes maybe 25, 30 years. So I've had a long, maybe at a distance, connection with ATREE, even after it got formed. Then there was the BCN project in Piligiri Rangan Hills, which I was a part of, which was a precursor to ATREE becoming not just project driven, but slowly evolving into programs. But there's a slight correction in what you said. I didn't jump immediately from Ford Foundation to ATREE. I had stepped down prior to my Ford. I was a trustee and a board member. When I joined Ford Foundation, as a donor, I had stepped down. After Ford, I was with the CGIAR, but that had no connection with being a donor. So I came back on board as a board member. I was a trustee. And when Gladwin decided to leave, I think there was some arm twisting. And so I was willing, let me put it this way, I was not unwilling. I had, again, for people who do not know, I was a banker in New York with Citigroup doing corporate finance and all that.
There
and
you go,
Europe.
he was a banker, so.
So maybe the board thought I had bagfuls of cash to bring in. But in any case, I moved from the Wall Street jungle to tropical jungle when I did my PhD work. I had made a transition even prior to that. So I had vicarious pleasure in directing an unruly group, as you said, maybe not unruly, but creative individuals who had their own interests. So I felt I could come in, provide some support. I said I would at least commit to 3 years. I had a lot of other interests. So what was it when I came in? I had had a bird's eye view of ATREE as a board member, as a trustee, working with other trustees. And I had met many of the faculty. I see some of their faces here, some may have moved on. And so I felt it would be an easy transition. I was partly mistaken. Yes, partly.
You realize that only when you come to the hot seat.
Yes. So now people say, well, you get kicked upstairs when you are a CEO, then you become a board member or chair. Here I was being kicked down from a board member to being the director. No, it was all in good fun. I like the challenge. I always like challenges. I've always moved around. So I felt it could be managed because I was invested in the idea of ATREE, in the commitment and passion shown by many people. But at times it went beyond the creative tensions into, maybe it could have tipped over into disruptive tensions. I mean, I think you alluded to that. But I think you managed it. It's not that people are foolish. They know donor priorities or something. Boards decide or at least guide the development of a strategy, and the individual faculty, while they have their interest in publishing, etc., how do you position that within the larger context of conservation priorities of the country? So yesterday we heard a lot about the salience and the relevance and the urgency. So this is where the director has to play the role of an opera conductor, or not more than opera. Yesterday we saw a lot of musical shows or dancing and all that. How do you get that creative abilities to have a well-sounding, well-choreographed music and dance? And I think at times, yeah, maybe the glass is not full. We have gone through 25 years, done a lot of interesting things, can do more. I think this is the challenge. How do you push without breaking? So
Sure.
maybe we'll come back to other things.
Sure. So let's move on to Karthik. Karthik, it always surprised me, how did, not that we are not scientists, but how was a actively working scientist sort of, you know, uh, put that in the back burner and come to administering ATREE?
Well,
sorry if I'm embarrassing you.
No.
But then this could be a lesson for many others also who would like to sort of pick on that.
Well, as Bala said, there was some arm twisting involved.
Oh, who's the arm twister here? Is he sitting here?
The best arm twister of all. So,
Much of his face is covered, so we can't recognize him here.
yeah. So, again, I was not just an ecologist working in an institute in Bangalore. I started my career at ATREE as a fellow. ATREE gave me my first real job. So I went from being, and I've heard this theme of unruly cats here. I went from being an unruly cat to an unrulier cat, and then coming back and trying to herd those cats. I think for me the thing about ATREE is that in my time when I was there as a fellow and as I sort of like engaged with people afterwards, and then I pitched for 3 years as director to various people as to why ATREE was a unique institution, is the fact that it's one of the few organizations that actually really attempts to bridge that the sort of the three-part, the three legs of the tripod being, research, knowledge generation, bottom-up action, working with communities, as well as policy. While we were engaged in conversations with partners and donors and so on, we kept bringing to light that it's a direction that, in fact, like academic institutions are trying to move towards, right? Universities in the US are setting up policy centers. In India, they're setting up policy centers. Here was an organization that from its birth was sort of set up to do all that. And to actually also, in that domain that we work in of conservation and sustainability, was one of the pioneers of interdisciplinarity by far in India, definitely in Asia, and perhaps one of the pioneers in the world as well. Right? So this was a really unique institution, and with all of its unruly cats, it was still one of the few places where such things could happen. And I thought that the opportunity to work with that group, it's a domain that I continue to work in terms of conservation action. I thought that was a really that was a challenge that it was worth taking some time off my academic life from. And Professor Umashankar, when Gladwin is quite is a special case here.
Why are you thinking so hard?
Yeah.
Come on. Yeah.
So as I might quote Paramesh again, who when at ATREE 20, when he said that when they heard that Gladwin was stepping down, the field staff asked him, "Who's going to be the next Gladwin?" So we are all not directors here. We are all Gladwins. And when Gladwin first attempted to step down, I think he tried many times. I was then on my way to, had been given an offer at IISc. And you said, why didn't you stay back and be director? I just decided to take you up on it 10 years later, that's all.
Thank you. Okay, I'm reminded that we have just 9 minutes more, and so we have just probably time enough for 2 quick sort of rounds. I'm going to do this, as I say, rapid fire. First rapid fire is just one-liner of what would be one single advice or suggestion or whatever, take home that you would like to sort of give to the new director that would be in place soon.
Make sure ATREE remains a caring institute.
Gladwin.
Manage diversity and
Mike.
Sorry, and I think the differences, whether within the staff or among the board, effectively, because I think diversity is an asset. A diversity that I think when we hear unruly, I think that spreads through the whole institution, and I think in a positive way, it can be channeled for good.
Thank you, Gladwin.
I'm going to go back to the theme of balance between, those the three pillars of knowledge, policy and action. I think they're all important, but not always equally balanced at ATREE, and finding that balance, I think, is a challenge that I would urge the new director to see.
Bala?
They're all good. I would say always try to keep up that level of excellence. I think that's extremely important in this dynamic world. I think unless you show that expertise and excellence and engagement with different stakeholders, I think ATREE will have difficulty given the kind of changes that are taking place. Excellence is the key for me. Of course, all the carrying, the balance and all of that is important, but the quality of work, I think, will speak for itself.
Thank you, Bala. Now, the last round, which is the rapid round, I was given a chocolate, a foreign chocolate. And this sort of prize, this is on the public voting. I'll give it to the person who sort of gives the best answer, okay? So, let's start with Gladwin. Gladwin, when you were at ATREE, the stuff that we used to hear is that you were the most, should I say, democratic of the directors until then, or you would take an opinion on every matters, be it whether to go to the toilet or to write to the government of India for an FCRA clearance. Defend.
What?
You just have to say something.
I think I think I learned how to kind of shape that inclusive, whatever you want to call it, management or leadership. And I think that is something that I think delegating authority, delegating leadership, building people has been something that I think it got shaped in that community at ATREE. Multiple people, you, Dr. Bava, Ganeshaya, Darshan Shankar, S.N. Rai, and a lot of people in the staff. Just learning and shaping that kind of an inclusive leadership style. And that's just something, I can't do any other kind of leadership.
Gladwin School of Management.
In fact,
We called it Gladwin School of Management. It has a
that's
name.
right. Thank you, Gladwin. Ravi, again on the same stuff, I think there was this word going around when you were the director that I think by far you are the most mobile of the directors. Your take on that?
Well, I always felt the role of the director is outside the institution.
Oh,
You establish principles, processes, delegate, then represent the institution far and wide. If you are going to manage the institution on a daily basis, you failed as a leader.
okay. Thank you. Karthik, which is easier or which was easier, handling your snakes or ATREE?
Snakes are predictable.
Thank you. Thank you. Bala. So, there was again, as I told to each of them, that when you were the director, I heard fellows saying that, not when you were the director, but I hear fellows telling of late or recent that when you were the director, they were able to breathe.
Maybe there was less hot air being generated.
Thank you, gentlemen. I think it was a great sort of round. But then I would ask the audience, to whom should this chocolate go? Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Moshe, can I have a few sentences? I won't be here this afternoon, but on this occasion, I've come back after 5-6 years, and it's the 25th year. Things are happening, transition is happening. So, and I see the kind of energy amongst the master's students, maybe the PhD students, and you also hear in most organizations, you have ambassadors. Ambassadors for what? Waving the flag, maybe going around to raise resources, making known about the organization and its work in multiple ways. But I feel we also need ambassadors in residence at the grassroots level, at the community level, with organizations. You can't be doing everything. You have only so many tentacles. You have community conservation centers, but going beyond this dynamic world, fast-changing world, you need to have master students who have finished, perhaps are interested and committed to development, taking the ideas from ATREE, going and spending immersion in these places for 3 months to 6 months, coming back, so that ATREE also understands what are the real challenges and issues that you can work on. So in support of that, through the family foundation that I have set up in the US called Terra Mater, I'd like to set up either as a project support or as an endowment, which Dr. Bawa has said he will match dollar for dollar. So we could do that starting this year for master students. This is a design that has to be developed with the acting director, real director, the board, and all of that. So I'd like to see 4 or 5 people try out, whoever is interested, go and spend a year, and let's hope this evolves. And I'd be very happy to be associated with that in some capacity. Thank you.
You know, I want to express my tremendous gratitude to all these individuals who are on the stage and other directors who were mentioned. I mean, it was just has been just a incredible experience, a very enriching experience, a very enjoyable experience working with these individuals. And these are the individuals, as I mentioned yesterday, who built ATREE and who are the real founders of ATREE. I also want to express my gratitude to Bala. I mentioned yesterday, money chases ATREE, and I think he has shown that. And this is, I can assure you, this is just the beginning of the day, and you will see more examples of that. And thank you, Bala. You already have an endowment at ATREE. And I want to relate just in 10 seconds my experience with Bala when we offered him the position. And I told him, this is what we can offer as a salary. He said, Kamal, don't worry. Consider the rest as my contribution to ATREE. Thank you.